welcome to another Indie Dev Showcase video here on the channel. Every Wednesday night, we do Indie Spotlight streams where we play nothing but indie titles to help showcase off smaller games. If you submit a title for a future one, please don't hesitate to get in touch. But we are continuing our playthrough of the games that were featured on the Steam Spring Festival of Games. And we are starting this video off with the game Ember. This is a game that follows the premise that we have Uber for firefighters, where anyone and everyone can sign up to fight fires, which I'm sure won't cause any problem, right? So the general idea of the game is that it can be played one player or with co-op, and your mission is to enter these procedurally generated homes to save the people, and of course find any bonus cash lying around, because that's very important as a firefighter. The game lets you pick from different classes of people or different classes of firefighters that determine what tools you have. So the game goes for a very wide assortment, from ladders and trampolines to grappling hooks and other interesting devices. Now, from what we played of the demo, the procedural generation goes for, again, over-the-top homes. And you'll have to deal with various kind of obstacles. So, for instance, as you saw right there, I used water, and I started an electrical fire and caused an electrical attack. So you need to find a switch to turn that off or turn off the power. Now, you also get devices that let you find the various people, and you have to transport them to safety. And all the while, they're going to be rating you, just like with Uber, to determine how great of a firefighter you were. Which I believe this game may be some kind of a dystopian obsession of phones and stuff like that. But that's for another discussion. The game hints at progression of unlocking new areas and using your money to do specific things, but we really didn't get a chance to see that in this demo. From what I played, it seems a little bit limited for just one person, and this feels like a game that really is going to make do being a co-op game, especially given the size of the homes and how slow and limited your general mobility is. But definitely an interesting concept for a game, and curious to see what they're going to do with it in the finished version. But with that, we move on to something very different. This is the adventure game Divis Cereal, and I'm completely butchering that. I'm going to let the title on screen carry me there. This is an adventure game that follows a detective in a post-apocalyptic, I think this is Los Angeles. It is San Francisco, according to the store page. And this is one of those games that, unfortunately for the spotlight, we really didn't get to see too much of it. This is more on the adventure side, and we really didn't see too much in terms of gameplay. I love the style of the game. It has a very striking pixel art style to it, and the game is kind of going for that mysterious and moody aesthetic. You know, what is real, what isn't. We saw numbers popping up there, and it's hard to tell at the moment just what any of this all means. The demo that's available on Steam basically lets you run through several different scenarios, which I believe for the finished game will all be connected bits of story, but here are kind of presented as just these little vignettes. And with that, there really isn't a lot to discuss with this game just yet. I like the style and the overall themes of it, but this will be one that we'll have to kind of wait and see on the full game in terms of what they're planning in terms of depth or actual choices with the mechanics. But with that said, let's move on to our next game. This is Eldest Souls. I guess not to be confused with Young Souls or Middle Age. And the simplest way to describe this one is that it's trying to combine the more slower, methodical combat of Dark Souls with the boss rush focus of the game Titan Souls. The story is that we are a visitor to this mysterious land. There's a lot of evil trying to kill us, and we're going to take it down one boss at a time. You can explore to find items that can be traded to power yourself up, but your main form of progression or combat is going to be fighting these enemies. You can see in the upper left that we have a stamina bar that allows me to dodge, And a bloodthirst bar, that's the bar that kind of fills up right there, that when I hit the enemy with the move, it lets me do increased damage to them. And this is important because these enemies take a lot of hits. Now, from playing the game, this is definitely on the harder side of things. Enemies do lots of damage to you, and they can also go through various phases from what we played as their health gets lower. And you really do have to get the timing down in order to have any chance of beating them. And you pretty much want to be hitting them while in bloodthirst mode. Now, with that said, there is unfortunately one bit of a killer for the game. This is what we ran into with in this version of it. And that is, there is a noticeable delay when you go to try and dodge an attack when you're swinging or attacking an enemy. And it's hard to see in the footage that you're seeing on screen. But after my character is done swinging their sword, there is a good half second to a full second of delay before they're able to respond to anything else, or more noticeably, dodge out of attacks. So what that means is that you can't really be focusing on attacking an enemy, because if they start their attack animation and you're in the middle of yours, they will get theirs off before you can really respond. There's also no dodge canceling, which is a very big point of some of these games. And this could be a deal breaker, I think, for Eldest Souls. And when I finally managed to beat this guy, the only way I did was simply by doing single charge hits and repeating as necessary. And that kind of repetitive nature of combat is not what I want to see. Now, I did like the idea of you leveling up your character and choosing specific perks, as opposed to just a straight linear progression. But again, for highly tuned games like this, and Souls-likes in general, if the basic combat loop doesn't work or it's just very cumbersome to play, it just ruins the entire experience no matter what else they put into it. And I'm hoping that with this being an alpha build of the game, that they've already done fine-tuning to these mechanics. And if they don't, then this may be one of those games that is going to prove to be a little too frustrating, even for a Souls-like, for people to enjoy. So this was the second fight of the game, or of the alpha build, and again, I just had so much frustration with fighting these controls and the dodge mechanics that I just didn't want to play it. And again, if you go for like single hits with Bloodthirst, it becomes a little bit more manageable, but in the same breath, it becomes far more repetitive of a play. And that's, again, an issue for these kinds of titles. You want to make the player feel like they're in complete control over their character, and that there is that sense of, a back and forth between you and the enemy. And unfortunately, I just got too frustrated with this game and just stopped playing. For our next one, we turn to the adventure game Hazel Sky. And this is a kind of low-stakes puzzle adventure game, where you play the son of a great inventor, and you've been sent to an island to complete a series of trials to earn your official ranking as an engineer for this steampunk-esque city. Staying your way, of course, is exploring the world, finding items, and solving the puzzles you need to make your way through it. Now, the demo hints at having very light puzzle solving, the find an item to use on what you need kind of design, as well as lore and collectibles you can pick up in the world. And the demo itself, unfortunately, was very limited. I think there was about maybe 15-20 minutes or less if you just go straight for the puzzle itself. But the general idea is going to be, we're going to be creating contraptions and making use of them in order to solve the puzzles while exploring the space. So you're able to run, jump, do some good old-fashioned climbing, and it's trying to be a little bit more action-based than your traditional adventure game. And this one shows some promise. Again, due to the limited nature of the demo, there really wasn't a lot we could show off here. But if you're looking for kind of a low-stakes adventure game with a little bit of action to it, I would say keep an eye out on Hazel Sky. And I'll be curious to see where this game goes in terms of its overall complexity and just how open the game gets. With the demo here, this all takes place within this kind of dilapidated lighthouse. And I don't know if the main game will be kind of like a series of rooms or will be kind of an open-ended exploration. But with that said, we're going to do our quick Patreon supporter and sponsor shout out now, and when we come back, we got a few more games to look at in this Indie Dev Showcase. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, link down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. We now turn our attention to yet another attempt at making Jay and Silent Bob into a video game. This is Jay and Silent Bob Mall Brawl, which, as you can tell by the graphics, looks to emulate 8-bit style beat-em-ups, such as the original, I think it was like a Final Fight play, River City Boys, and a lot of those other kind of retro-minded titles. And unfortunately, this is one of those games that just kind of feels like trying to emulate the classics without really getting why those games work. Combat felt very floaty, and it's very easy for enemies to kind of surround you. And as you can see right there, when you hit an enemy, you kind of push them forward, and if you're attacking like just out of their range, you can actually push them out of your hit range, but still get hit by theirs. And it just did not feel that great to control. Now, from what I was playing, you're able to switch between both Jay and Bob, I think at will, or if one character runs out of health, as you see right here. And I do think there is co-op with the two characters as well, but we are just playing this as a single player game. But my problem is that we've played a lot of elevated takes at beat-em-up titles, and this one just was not working. And especially we play games like River City Girls, Fight and Rage, and other titles that have done a lot more in this kind of space. But with that, we move on to something very different with Klang 2. So the first Klang, looking this up, was kind of a rhythm-focused platformer. And for this one, it looks like they're going more for just a combat focus, as you need to time your swipes and presses to fight these enemies using your tuning blades here. Now, from what we were playing this on Steam, this seems like a game that was designed for a mobile interface first. A lot of gestures and touch-based commands, all while you're listening to some EDM, which I'm sure I'm going to get a copyright claim for with it being featured in this video. But from what I played, it seems to be all gesture or control based like that. Like, you don't really have any further input. And I think this is going to be one of those games that is aimed more for a casual audience who really likes their EDM as well. Now, there are various difficulty settings and different levels from what we saw, and it allows you kind of skip forward, as you can see right here. So I don't know like exactly how far they're going in terms of the gameplay, as opposed to just being the straight, just almost like QTE centric design. But I say that this is definitely aimed for fans of kind of like the rhythm-based design. And if you do like this kind of music and you really want to listen to it while fighting whatever the heck those things are, give this one a look. But unfortunately, this is one of those games that's not really for me. And with that, we turn to our final game for this video. This is Liberated. And this one definitely has style to spare. As the game is described, this is a noir cyberpunk action-adventure game with stealth and puzzle design, all set within this theme of being told through a comic book, with every level or every scene taking place in a panel, as you can see right here. And definitely love the concept of this. And the idea is that each story of the game takes place in a different comic or a different, series or episode of Liberated, as you try to figure out what is going on and solve these mysteries. For each level, you play as a different character, but your general elements or your general mechanics remain the same. You can move, fight, and the game definitely plays into some stealth aspects from what I saw later in this demo. And the game is going for, I think, a very pass-fail kind of stealth design. That the second the enemy sees you, you are in deep trouble, as you're going to see me get gunned down by everybody. Now, the game, we were playing this with a gamepad, but I feel like keyboard and mouse may be the better take, being able to aim a lot easier. And it did get a little bit frustrating to play. I think in one of these attempts, I just kind of like sneak all the way around and like kind of like break the design. And yet, the detection feels a little bit funky in this game in terms of how far do I have to be before an enemy sees me, as you saw me hopping into the room right there. And that time they heard me, even though the guy was already dead. So, I don't know if that will be fixed in the real version, or if we just had some very weird issues with how all this worked. But, even with that said though, I love the style that they're going for. I've always been a fan of this kind of like combat or world in a comic strip, kind of similar to Comic Zone from way back in the day. And it seems like with Liberated, they're going for a lot of different design and elements or mechanics with it. So I'll be curious to see how this all plays out in the finished version. But with that, we're going to wrap up this Indie Dev Showcase here. I'd like to thank all the games shown, and there will be links to their respective store pages in the description down below. Every Wednesday night, we once again do these Indie Spotlight streams, and if you'd like me to play your game in the future, please don't hesitate to get in touch, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Until next time, have a great night. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.